Hey, this is Thomas Q. Jones, former UVA All-American running back, and you're listening to the Jerry Ratcliffe Show. Wahoo wah.
Welcome to the Jerry Ratcliffe Show. I'm Chris Graham. Jerry Ratcliffe and I are going to talk some Virginia sports today. A lot going on. Still in basketball. We're 3 weeks past the season being over, and the news has not stopped. Jerry, what's got your attention these last few days? As I guess the transfer portal's been kind of quiet. No more new guys from Virginia heading out. There's a lot of contacts from the Virginia staff to guys on the portal to see if they can get a guy or two in. What's the latest?
Well, there's two guys visiting today as we speak. We know who one of them is. We don't know who the other one is at this moment. Jordan Minor, who's a 6'8", 240 power forward from Merrimack, and a grad transfer, came to Charlottesville yesterday. And I know he's having dinner with Tony tonight, along with another recruit. Again, we don't know who that is. But Minor was the, Northeast Conference Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year this past season. Had some eye-opening numbers with average 17.5 points a game.
Yeah, 17.5 points, something like 9 rebounds, shot over 50% from the field, I remember seeing. And he's a 4-year guy, so he'd only be a 1-year commitment for Virginia. It'd be kind of a short-term situation there.
Yeah, he would definitely be a fill-in-the-gap kind of player in a front court that was diminished by the transfer portal, graduation, and the NBA draft. And he would be a nice complement to another player or two that they've shown some interest in. Minor seems to bring us a solid overall game to the table. Good defender, good rebounder, decent scorer. Shot 51.5% from the field. He's also looking at Seton Hall. He's got a trip planned there, I think next weekend or weekend after next, and a trip to Iowa next weekend, and to Florida Gulf Coast, I think this coming weekend. So he should have his decision wrapped up pretty soon. Another kid who we heard has narrowed his list down to 2 since last night, when he had cut it to 5. Robert Jennings, I think we mentioned him last week. He's a 6'7", 225 power forward from Texas Tech who has 3 years of eligibility remaining. So supposedly he is down to Virginia and Maryland, we're told. Somebody else said it's down to Virginia, and whether he wants to go back to Texas Tech or not. Texas Tech has a new head coach, the North Texas State coach who coached against Virginia in the NIT last season. But Jennings, we were talking about Minor being a good complementary player for a year. He and Jennings would seemingly fit fairly well together as complementary power forwards on a team. Jennings supposedly will visit 14th through the 16th. And the guy, he didn't have very impressive numbers at Texas Tech in his freshman season, Chris, but in fact, only 3 times did he, 10 times he played 10 minutes or more. or more in a game. And if you projected those 10 minutes over a 40-minute window, his numbers would look pretty good. He would average 16 points and 9 rebounds a game. But in reality, his career high was 8 points, which he hit 3 times. He has played in 30 games with the Red Raiders, so he's not a rookie. He had a lot of offers out of high school. He's from Texas originally, and DeSoto, Texas. He had some pretty decent numbers, but his freshman year down in Lubbock, he only had 2.7 points and 1.9 rebounds a game, and averaged about 8 minutes a contest. So I think Virginia did recruit him out of high school. So they're familiar with what his potential is, and that's part of what you recruit off of. And I think that's probably what has attracted them to him at this point. So we know, like we said, we know Minor is visiting right now along with another player. We know Jennings is coming 14th through the 16th, unless he moved up his schedule and is the other player here now. We're not sure who that other guy is. But some other guys have indicated that they want to visit Virginia, and one of those is Will Shaver, who was a kid that a lot of people liked coming out of high school. 3-star from Birmingham, Alabama, a top 25 center prospect in the country, and number 3 in the state of Alabama for any position, but committed to North Carolina, and probably against better judgment, decided to enroll early. And what happened was Carolina was all caught up in, they were enjoying a pretty good season. That was the year, 2 years ago, when they went to the national championship game, and they were pouring all their energy into getting what they could out of that team. And in the meantime, Shaver kind of slipped between the cracks, I think, in the program. He was living with 2 other players, and both of them transferred out. So he ended up being a freshman in a 4-bedroom apartment in Chapel Hill by himself, and was just kind of forgotten about, I think. So he redshirted that year and then came back this year. They thought he would be able to contribute to the depth in their front court. And on December the 20th, I think he stepped on another player's foot in practice and broke a bone in his foot, underwent surgery January 2nd, and has missed the rest of the season. He's a 6'10", 260 physical guy. Again, another kind of guy that those other 2 would complement. Were they all here together, that would immediately, I think, probably fix your front court problem. With those 3 guys, there's some other big guys that have indicated Virginia is interested in them, or they're interested in Virginia. So it looks like there's a lot of front court guys that could be possibilities, Chris.
Probably a need in the backcourt with the news last week. I'm not sure if we had talked about this before the news came out. I think it was actually Friday. Armand Franklin announcing he's going to enter the NBA draft, and it seems like he is done at Virginia. He'll graduate in May, so he doesn't, he won't suffer in any respect there. He probably won't hear his name called in the draft, but He'll be done with college basketball. And we already knew about the Reese Beekman news. Reese announcing he's entering the draft, but will not hire an agent so he can maintain his college eligibility, at least, unless something like Trey Murphy happens with him. And Murphy originally intended to test the waters and come back, and then found out he was a first-round pick, and he's been putting up some good numbers with New Orleans. Had 30 last night for the Pelicans in a win over the Memphis Grizzlies. So that would probably tell you if those two guys are both gone, or even just Franklin's gone, maybe some depth in the backcourt. And if Beekman's gone as well, probably a point guard backup, because right now it's just Dante Harris, the Georgetown transfer, at point guard.
Yeah, and I have to stand corrected on the agent thing. I was informed and that apparently there's been a new rules change with the NCAA where you can hire an NBA or NCAA approved agent and still maintain your eligibility. So these guys can sign agents and still come back to college if they don't like what they're seeing, as long as they pull their name out of the draft by May 31st. So that's a new flip that I was not aware of. So I guess either one of those guys could come back if they want to. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because all the mock drafts I've looked at, Chris, I don't see either one of them's name popping up anywhere. So
I've seen Beekman's name in a few in the late second round, and I've also seen several mock drafts with no Beekman. I've not even seen. I mean, some of the mock drafts will show you not just the 2 rounds, but then they'll show the projected top 100 or top 125 or top 150 players. The draft, there's only 60 guys who can get their names called.
right.
I've not even seen Franklin's name on as far as down as the top 150. So Beekman certainly. I mean, the lowest I think I've seen him in those renderings is somewhere in the 70s. So if he's not called, he's he'll be one of the first few that don't get called, and he could I would assume that could give him a good leg up for being an undrafted free agent, getting an invite to a camp or something like that, if he were to be so inclined to test the waters and stay in the draft. But Franklin, yeah, I'm not seeing anything with Franklin being anywhere close to even 150, which tells you, I mean, if he is intent on going pro, it's going to be overseas somewhere.
Yeah, I would agree. And so who knows? Both of those guys could be back in the fold by the end of May. We don't know that. Or they both may be gone forever. We're not sure, but
I will say that the indications I'm getting from the whispers I'm hearing around is that Franklin is done. Beekman is on the fence, but Franklin is ready to move on. He's ready to graduate and see what happens with the rest of his life, basically.
yeah, and that's probably not a bad choice for him. So could be a Beekman plus team, and there could be a minus Beekman team. We'll just have to wait and see. Another kid who we talked about a couple of weeks ago is really intrigues me, and he's a true pure shooter, and he's definitely planning to visit Virginia as soon as some of these games in the Geico Nationals are over with. I think he played last weekend, and I think he hit the winning shot in the final game of that round 1 of competition. Blue Kane, 6'4" shooting guard out of Knoxville, Tennessee originally, but played this past season for IMG down in Bradenton, Florida. And I don't know if you've had a chance to see his video highlights, Chris, but this guy could knock him down, man. I'm telling you. He even has a man bun like somebody we used to know. But he's looked really strong. In all the videos I've seen, like I said, he was outstanding in this recent round of games that are being held down in Fort Myers, Florida. And I don't know what it's sort of a national tournament, but not an official national tournament, if that makes any sense. But he's just played really well, and I've just been so impressed with his ability to shoot the basketball. I think he's exactly what Virginia needs right now in this point in time, is to have another shooter in the program. If you got McNeely and this kid in the lineup at the same time, I like the looks of that a lot. And you can't slack off one without opening up the other to do a lot of damage. And I don't know what all he's looking for in a school. He was Georgia Tech's only commitment or signee in the early signing period, and then when they dismissed Josh Pastner after the season, this kid asked to be released from that national letter of intent and was so granted. So I mean, just wow! If they can get him in the fold and have those two guys shooting up a storm next year, I think that's going to help Virginia a lot.
It would definitely address a need. Virginia struggling in February and March with its 3-point shooting after having some really good months early in the season. So addressing the front court needs, addressing some backcourt needs. There's going to be a lot of give and take here the next few weeks with visits and, with the back and forth as far as that goes. I had a story today, Jerry, that's gotten quite a few clicks for good reason, I guess. Word coming from around the program that Kaden Shedrick is leaning towards making his transfer decision. And if he were to make it today, he'd be headed to Duke. And that'd be interesting. If you thought Justin McCoy going to North Carolina got people riled up, if Kaden Shedrick ends up back at Duke, down at Duke, 30 miles from where he grew up in Holly Springs, North Carolina, that would get tongues wagging in Charlottesville and in the UVA fan base.
Oh, no question about it. I mean, you talk about arch enemies, they certainly are. And I mean, it wouldn't be highly unusual to see a guy go to a school near where he grew up. So we saw that with Isaac Trout, who has since committed to Creighton. And we saw that with Justin McCoy, who has now transferred yet again to Hawaii.
He must be a smart kid. He's going to play his last year of college basketball in Hawaii. That's a good move.
Yeah, if you're not going to play a lot, at least enjoy the scenery, right?
Exactly.
So I wish Shedrick well wherever he winds up. He's a good kid, and I hope he lands on his feet. I saw Illinois, or I think it was Illinois, was also interested in Shedrick, but I can't imagine him turning down Duke if that offer would come to pass. It would be a good move on his part, I think.
Yeah, but there's some logic to it. Duke has, as usual, a signing class of a bunch of 5 stars. 3 guys who are all 6'8" power forwards are among their 5 stars coming in next year. Assuming Kyle Filipowski declares for the draft and then remains in the draft, and I think that's a fair assumption. He just hasn't made that call yet. From what I'm reading from the Duke basketball blog sources and other sources that I've been consulting the last couple of days, and news on that is expected either today or tomorrow on Filipowski's part. they're losing their other big guy to the draft. So I think was that Lively committing to the draft. So there's a 3-star guy who was a recruit that came in this year, didn't play a lot at Duke. And then other than that, it'd be those who's a 7-footer, I think. The 6'8" kids, it's hard to imagine they all would play at the same time, or even 2 of the 3 would play at the same time. You would assume that you would want to have a rim protecting big in there with them. So Shedrick could compete for a starting job there. If nothing else, he's a 15-minute guy off the bench, but there is some logic to that if that would be the case. In fact, the Duke sources I was catching up with the last couple of days, it seems like they've been expecting all along that when Filipowski announces his intention to go into the draft, that Shire would have already been looking for a big like a Shedrick to fill that void. So it'd be good for him. He would have 2 years of eligibility left, and he'd have a UVA degree, I assume, next month, and he could work on a couple of master's degrees if he stayed 2 more years at Duke. He'd be all set out there for life after that.
Yes, he would, and that would just add a little bit more to the rivalry as well. That would be cool. There's 100 other names that have been either tied to Virginia or Virginia's been tied to them, but we don't know of any other visits that have been set at this point. That'll probably happen as soon as we go off the air, but that seems to be the case every time we report something like this. Then more things open up that evening, but gosh, there's so many guys out there and so many slots to fill. It's going to be interesting to watch this unfold as try to figure out what Tony and his staff are doing and trying to rebuild this team, and with limited pieces that they already have. And then again, you don't know whether you're going to get Beekman back or not. How many of these big guys should you jump on? Should you take them all? If you can get them all, should you take them all? Probably should right now, because they got the scholarships available. You're getting 3 guys that have played quite a bit in some instances and not hardly at all in some others. So there's at least 4 big guys either visiting or planning on visiting that have expressed a strong interest in Virginia. So it'll just going to be interesting to see how many of these guys they take and who they fill in around them with other guys popping up throughout the portal.
Looking for a great dining experience in Charlottesville? Look no further than the Aberdeen Barn. The barn has been family owned and operated since 1965, with Terry and Angela providing great atmosphere and mouth-watering food at Virginia's big-time steakhouse. Enjoy the fine dining or relax in the Sportsman's Bar, a fantastic place to wind down and socialize, surrounded by flat-screen televisions tuned to the latest sporting events. You never know who you might bump into at the Aberdeen Barn, where all the greatest Cavaliers have dined over the decades and keep coming back for the delicious menu and good times. Check it out online at aberdeenbarn.com or call 434-296-4630.
Hi, it's Jonathan Cotton with the Good Feet store. As a lifelong runner, the pain in my feet was debilitating. Finally, I went into the Good Feet store and found the answer: personally fit arch supports. They helped me so much I ran my first marathon that year. Then, because I believed in the Good Feet system so much, I bought the store. I'm so happy to offer my hometown community the opportunity to find relief from foot, knee, and back pain. The Good Feet store is located in the shops at Stonefield near Trader Joe's. Book your appointment today at goodfeet.com.
This is Chris Slade, former University of Virginia defensive end, graduate of 1993, back on the staff at UVA. Excited to be back coaching my old stomping grounds. You're listening to the Jerry Ratcliffe Show.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it right now, there's the math I've done. You got 6 guys that, including the 2 incoming freshmen, Elijah Gertrude and Blake Buchanan, that you would rely on for minutes next year, and that would include Tane Murray, who didn't get minutes until late in the season this year. But then, if in the front court, it would just be Ryan Dunn and then Buchanan, the incoming freshman. So there's the glaring need. I mean, at least 2 more guys, maybe 3, to flesh out your front court, but at least 2 reliable guys who are going to compete for minutes. And then in the backcourt, with assuming Franklin's gone, which is a safe assumption, I think, and I'm assuming Beekman's back. Until I hear otherwise, I just can't imagine that anybody's going to advise him to take a run on the draft when he is so his draft stock is so uncertain whether or not he would even hear his name called. But you still would need you would want at least one shooter, I think, to just kind of go in there and compete. So, yeah, you got scholarships are available, and they don't do you any good if they're not used. And I still think it could be a good thing to get another point guard, especially a young point guard, if there's someone on the portal that you can find and vet and decide fits the system well, because then you could groom that player to be ready to jump in next year, because that Beekman, if he comes back this year, he's going to be a 1-year guy after this. He still has 2 years of eligibility left, but I would assume if he put his name in the draft this year, he would leave next year. So maybe have an opportunity to train somebody to and also let that person be in the mix to get some minutes this year. So, but yeah, this cannot be fun in a lot of ways for Tony and the staff. They had the most experienced roster in the ACC and one of the most veteran rosters in the country just a few weeks ago, and now they're having to piece it back all together.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating. I was on a sports talk show in Burlington, Vermont. Don't ask me why, because they asked me to come on last Saturday and talk about the NIL and the transfer portal and how it's impacted basketball, probably because it's wreaked havoc with Virginia here for a little bit. But and they were asking, you think this is something that will ultimately drive Tony Bennett and some of these other, more established coaches out of the business because of the unnecessary headaches and all the additional stress it puts on a coach. And I don't know that it's at that point yet, but I do think it had an impact on Jay Wright, and I think it impacted Jim Boeheim's decision a little bit. That and he talked about it a little bit during the season, that you don't have to go out and the traditional way and build your program anymore. You just throw some NIL money around and you got a new team. Voila. And we were seeing it all over the place. It makes you wonder if it didn't usher out Krzyzewski and some of those people maybe a little earlier than they had planned on stepping aside. But I don't know how coaches do it. I mean, it was not an easy job before, just dealing with the regular recruiting where you've got the early signing periods and then the additional signing period. Now you got the transfer portal to deal with, and that seems to be ongoing. At least they're trying to put some kind of caps on it to where you have to do things by a certain period of time and limiting the number of times you can transfer, which they're going to have to do because it's insane right now, Chris. It's just totally insane.
Yeah, you're unlike in pro sports, guys are free agents every year. And there's people who always preferred college sports to pro sports would say, well, there's too much movement in the pros. Guys change uniforms all the time. Well, they really don't compare to this now. You have to, when you sign a contract, generally guys sign contracts for multi-years, even just a couple of years. And in college, they can certainly right now, the way things are, move around, pretty easily from year to year. I honestly think the only way all this changes is when the NCAA finally and its member institutions finally start actually paying the student athletes. I don't know how and that will change the economics of college sports forever. But when you start paying guys and gals, then they'll have contractual terms, and that you could sign people for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Then they won't move around because you've signed them. But you're paying them a contract. But right now, all those grants and aid are year to year, and coaches have always had that power over their student athletes, and now the student athletes are getting back. They're getting back after all these years. They're getting it back.
It makes you wonder too about with Rick Pitino going to St. John's. He when he came in, he said, I'm expecting an almost complete roster change here, because you got to be a certain kind of player to play for me, and I don't see a lot of those guys on this roster. So they can revoke your scholarship anytime they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if we might start seeing even more of that now, if when coaches change over to different programs. And with the portal out there, you can go get 2 or 3 new guys in a heartbeat.
Oh, heck, Kansas State this year, didn't that new coach come in this time last year? He had one player that ended up on this year's team.
Yeah.
That he inherited when he took the job, and he went to the Elite Eight, I think it was. So,
yes.
You can not only build a new roster, but you can build a good new roster if you're if your NIL and your school's admissions department cooperate well.
Exactly.
That's the disadvantage that Virginia's got. Virginia admissions not quite as loose as it is a lot of places in Division I basketball, Division I sports in general, and I don't know that our NIL game is quite what it could be yet either. So there's 2 distinct disadvantages, not just for Tony Bennett, but for any coach at Virginia to try to compete with their brethren and the rest.
Yeah, no question about it. And we've mentioned it before on the podcast too, that in terms of the transfer portal, some of these guys who want to come, some of their credits might not transfer because Virginia just doesn't accept it, just any credit. So that adds another complication to their puzzle as well.
Yeah, no doubt. It's there's a lot of and that's what makes this era tougher. Even I'm looking right now. The acceptance rate at Kansas State is in the mid to upper 90s in terms of the number of people who apply versus the number who are accepted. It's pretty good school to get into if you're trying to get into a school. Virginia's acceptance rate is in the low 20% range. So that's a disadvantage. Yeah, the credits transfer. I mean, the thing is, and I guess another level of disadvantage to this is when Virginia guys or gals, in the case we're talking about basketball here today, men's basketball today, Kaden Shedrick's transferring out. Well, he's a student in good standing at the University of Virginia. He can get in any school in the country he wants to. Same for, Isaac Trout, obviously, all the people transferring out of Virginia can get into anywhere. Virginia can't just take anybody from anywhere, though. They have to, they still have to get into school, and that's. I'm not complaining. It's just the fact that it's a factor that Tony, the 2 Tonys and Brian and other coaches, Coach Mox and all the rest have to deal with. That not too many other people, the Northwesterns, Vanderbilt, Stanfords of the world have to deal with, but Virginia coaches definitely have to deal with that layer.
Absolutely, no question about it.
So we've talked basketball to the end there. Maybe we should talk any football news you want to bring up?
They've had a couple of commitments in the past week or so, Chris. They did get one kid from the transfer portal. I got so many. I hate this time of year because your basketball and your football notes run together. Yeah, the transfer portal kid, and I guess you got to give new offensive line coach Terry Hefferman a lot of credit. He's been working hard trying to rebuild his offensive line. He has attracted Brian Stevens, offensive lineman, 6'2", 290 from Dayton through the portal. And Stevens' distinction is he was the highest graded FCS offensive guard in all of FCS football for the 2022 season through our friends at Pro Football Focus. And it wasn't even close. I think his grade for the season was 86.5. The number 2 guy was 84.4. So nowhere even close. No. He played in 20 games for Dayton. Don't know a lot else about him other than, just another building block there. And a couple other kids, high school, in-state high school kids, they have landed for the class of 23, I guess it is. Ethan Mentor from Thomasdale High School down in Chester, 3-star athlete, projected as a wide receiver or safety at Virginia. He's 6'1", 190. Actually, the class of 2024. So he's a kid that was actually offered by Broncos staff a couple of years ago. And so he's been on Virginia's radar for quite some time. He was here for a recent junior day. And I never really know what to make of some of these composite rankings, but in 247 Sports Composite ranking, he's listed as the number 1,113th prospect in the country. I don't know how you do that, but the number 123 athlete and the number 29 prospect overall in the state of Virginia, which that makes a little more sense. He chose Virginia over the Hokies, over JMU and Liberty. So not a lot of, well, no other schools outside the state, really. Somebody said Maryland was on his list, but I don't think he, even though they offered, I don't think he ever considered Maryland at all. So I guess anytime you're a Virginia coach and you get a commitment from somebody over the Hokies, you've done a good job in landing that kid. The other high school kid that they got a commitment from is Benjamin York. Big kid, 6'5", 286, offensive tackle out of Lake Braddock High School up in Burke, Northern Virginia. And he's also listed as the number 29 prospect in the state by 247 Sports, another 3-star. His list of offers not quite as impressive as the other kids. He chose Virginia over Appalachian State, Monmouth, Kentucky, Kent State, Old Dominion, and Temple. So not exactly an eye-popping list, but he's an offensive lineman. He's got room to grow and time to develop, and that's the only two high school commitments they have so far for the 2024 class, Chris.
What a coincidence that one kid you talked about is the 1,113th rated recruit or something like that. I'm the 1,113th best sports writer. I'm channeling Tucker McLaughlin now in Virginia. So yeah, what a small world that kind of thing is. Yeah, you wonder where they get. This kid's no, he's not even close to being as good as a 1,112th kid though. I mean that kid. It's all fun, isn't it? 30 years ago, we didn't have those comparisons. You just had to go out there and find guys and say, I think he's good. Let's get him to come here.
I still think that's the best way is through the eye test. And if a guy, it looks like he fits your program and meets your requirements and you see him and you like him, sometimes I think that's good enough. Sometimes I think they just recruit kids off who else has offered him. And sometimes that's not a true indication of how good a kid is.
Well, and winning on signing day, our friends down in Miami could tell you it doesn't do a lot for you in the fall.
Yes,
they win a lot of signing days. They're always really good at the ACC kickoff too. But then when they actually have to play on the field, that's a different thing. So. But that said, yeah, some football recruiting news there. I know we have some football news. We're so deep in basketball right now, both of us at jerryratcliffe.com and AugustaFreePress.com. But I know spring practice is going on. I've got a few. My bank of stories now. I got 3 or 4 stories I'm behind now. The linebacker group, I think I still have to write about. The quarterback group. Yeah, they keep rolling out the groups for us to talk with. And, you get on the Zooms and you transcribe the notes, but then, something else happens in basketball, and that's where everybody's reading right now. They want to know what's happening to the basketball team more than the football team right now. So that's where our attention needs to be.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, you've got a top 25 basketball program that's, not that far away from a national championship a few years ago. And even though they're coming off somewhat of a disappointing season in the fact that it ended prematurely in most people's minds, they still were co-ACC champions. They still were a pretty darn good team, beat some good teams early in the season and provided a lot of highlights and thrills. And now most of those players are gone. And, it's only natural to find, for people to want to know who's taking their place. It's like you said, it's like an NFL team's draft day. I mean, except it's never ending, but it's, people are curious about, who are we going to get for this spot? Who's going to play in this spot? Can we get that many guys to fill out a roster? And, how will they blend together, et cetera, et cetera. So, as opposed to the football program, which is coming off a tough year and by all accounts, it projected to have another tough year coming up. But so the interest is definitely there in basketball. And one thing that slipped my mind, got to give her tip our hats to, Chris, is our good friend Jay Huff for winning the G League Defensive Player of the Year this past season. Everybody loved Jay Huff.
Yeah, Jay was a fan favorite even when he wasn't getting minutes, and then when he started getting minutes and playing well, and now he's having to fight his way kind of similarly in the pro ranks. He's now on a two-way deal with the Washington Wizards. He played a lot of the season on a two-way deal with the LA Lakers and getting some minutes at the with the Wizards in the NBA. But he's a guy that I guess I've used this before. He's like kind of like a 4A guy in baseball. The old saying about you're too good for AAA, but maybe not quite good enough for the big leagues. He's good enough for the NBA, but he's not getting those looks. So right now he's sort of a 4A guy. He's too good for the G League. No question about that. And he just needs to find the right spot. And I still can't imagine for anything a 7-1 guy who can shoot threes and block shots and play defense the way he does can't find a spot in the NBA. That doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I think he will at some point. I don't know how long lived it might be, but somebody's gonna see some value, I think, in giving him a chance to show what he can do. I think his best basketball is still ahead of him.
Yeah, he's an athletic guy. I remember that
Very
dunk.
athletic.
There was that dunk in a game against Duke, I think down in Durham, where he took off from the foul line, and it wasn't in a dunk contest. It was in a game, and he threw down a dunk and got fouled. And you're like, he's a lot of 7-1 guys are, can't walk and chew gum at the same time. This guy he's 7-1 with leaping ability. I can't wait to see him in a dunk contest. He's probably too nice a guy to do too much stuff, but boy, with his height, his long arms, and his incredible leaping ability, and his 3-point shooting, man, he's got a lot of stuff. He's too good not to catch on somewhere. You just got to find the right situation.
He was one of the most entertaining guys we've seen come through here. Really, you stop and think about it.
First game, he was like 5 of 6 from 3. It was a throwaway game in November. He comes out and, we've heard about Jay Huff, and then this big kid's hitting threes, and then he didn't play for a while after that. He's a super nice guy too. He's almost too nice a guy. Never forget though that game against Duke right before the pandemic, unfortunately, where he blocked that shot. The Duke kid, I can't think of the Duke kid's name now, but they ran a little pick and roll play, perfectly executed. I mean, this kid had a dunk, and Jay came out of nowhere and blocked it. And then I think he just missed a triple double with blocks with that. I think he had 9 blocks in that game, which was just amazing in itself. And for the first time I remember ever seeing Jay Huff, he had this roar. He after he blocked that shot. Such a nice kid, and then he just showed fire there, and then made the free throws, and Virginia won the game. And what a kid, what memories of him. Glad to see him doing well, and he needs to, somebody in the NBA needs to give him an even better shot.
Yeah, you mentioned what a nice guy he is. It was not surprising to see that he, when asked about the award, the Defensive Player of the Year award, he said, "I wish I could cut this in thirds or fourths and give it to my teammates, because I knew that the 2 guards down in front of me, if anybody did finally escape their defensive prowess and make it down the lane, that they knew I was back there to make up for it. But I always knew that the chances of anybody coming down the lane were rare, because these guys were so good at what they did." But that's just the kind of kid he is. He's just the kind of guy that makes Virginia fans proud, I think, of the type of player that comes out of here.
Part of you wants to say that they learned that from Tony, but Tony also recruits kids who already like that too. So there's a little bit of a two-way street there. He recruits good kids, and then they become even better kids when they get there. So and you could also, he could have also said, I wouldn't have blocked so many shots if those guys weren't letting guys get around him all the time. But he wouldn't do that. No, I saw he had a great game in the G League a couple of weeks ago. He had like 31 points, 16 boards. I think it was 7 blocks in the game. I mean, just those are video game numbers. That's you know, if he gets the right situation once again, he will put, I don't know if he'll put 31, 16, and 7 up, but he'll put up double digit scoring, he'll rebound, he'll block shots at the NBA level once he gets a chance to finally get in there and get some minutes.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the game against the Bucks or not, but one of the better teams in the league, and his numbers were fantastic. You figure if he can do it in a game like that, he's got potential enough to play in the league for a while, no question. And I also wanted to mention, I'm going to write about this tonight, but I dropped by the Good Feet store the other day, and what a great crowd they had for to say farewell to Kihei Clark and Jaden Gardner, two of the class kids. Two more of the class kids that have come out of the program. They were lined up out in the street to come into the store and have their photographs taken with those two kids and get an autograph poster. Just to chit chat and tell them. I heard so many people give them personal messages about how much fun they were to watch and wished them so well, whatever their future holds for them. And you could tell that Kie and Jaden were both very appreciative of what the fans thought of them. And it was really nice for Jonathan Cotton, the owner of the Good Feet store, to have an event like that to give fans an opportunity to say goodbye, because often you don't really get an opportunity to do that. They play their last game and they're gone, and you don't see them again for a couple of years, and you might run into them at the Aberdeen barn or somewhere. But it was really nice to see them get saluted like that. And hats off to Virginia fans for showing up and seeing them off to a fond farewell.
Yeah, too bad we can't figure out a way to get him to come back for one more year. That's the only bad thing.
One more year would have been nice.
one more year. That's right. And so you've talked about the Good Feet store. I know as we wrap up, you like to thank the sponsors. So the Good Feet store obviously had a big event. You'll be writing about that tonight.
Yeah, we'll have that and a few photographs, and that'll be cool. Also, the Aberdeen barn, which I slipped in there, but you will see former Virginia athletes and coaches and people there in the barn, chowing down on food from the state's best steakhouse in a great atmosphere. Can watch, go by there this weekend, have a steak, watch the Masters, have a good time. And also Rowback, our great sponsor. I don't have their gear on today, but activewear, sportswear, Charlottesville-based company, one of the fastest growing clothing lines in America. They've just rolled out a whole new line of spring fashion with they even have a Charlottesville shirt with little Charlottesville icons in the shirt that any Wahoo or Charlottesvillian would be proud to display. So men's and women's line. So go to their ad on our website or on your phone and click on it. Choose your merchandise, and when you check out, use code Jerry, JERRRY, and get a nice 20% discount on your first order. So please support our sponsors, because without them, we couldn't do this every week or a few times a week. And We appreciate them and we appreciate you.
Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to our listeners and readers out there. For more on Virginia sports, we are both hard at work. Go to jerryratcliffe.com, augustafreepress.com, and you'll find out the latest. You'll find out what we know, and there's a lot going on right now these days. Thanks to Jerry Ratcliffe as well for letting me be a part of this show. I'm signing off. Chris Graham. Everyone have a great week.